everybody. Excited to have you here on the call, and we're excited to have Andrea here to talk about marketing, and hopefully everybody's ready with their martinis. So you want to go ahead and start. I have it so that you can share your screen.
Okay, great. So,
all right.
Hi, I know a lot of you. I don't know all of you. I'm Andrea Hill. I own Hill Management Group, and we have 3 brands that serve the not just the jewelry industry, but the consulting group. Strategy Works is the only consulting group that I know of in the world that consults the entire jewelry market worldwide, mind to market. Then we have a company called Crm Marketing, which is a very digital first marketing agency that we started to serve the industry because it didn't have a digital first agency. And then I have Mentor Works, which does professional development and business development skills for very small jewelers. So those are my companies. And I got to the jewelry industry 25 years ago now, I guess, when I went to be the CEO at Rio Grande. So that was my first jewelry experience, and I stuck. All right, so today I'm going to be talking to you about I'm going to share my screen here and get a slide up. All right, let me know when you can see that.
I can see it.
You can? Okay.
It's great.
So we're talking about the next era in small business marketing, and I really am talking about what's next today because things are changing fast. So let's just take a look at where we've been so far, which is pre-2000. By the way, I'd like to know, like, how many of you are bench jewelers or studio jewelers? I know we have a couple bench and studio jewelers in the group. And let's see, Pam, you said you just opened up a retail shop, right? So you're doing retail as well?
Not a retail, it's a studio for artists to work in and to teach classes. So
Okay, so the education piece of it.
education aspect of it, yes.
All right, any other business types in this group today?
I'm custom fine jewelry.
Also custom.
Design. Just design.
Okay. All right. So I'll try to tailor the information as much to you guys as possible. Some of it's going to cut across, more aspects of the industry. So before 2000, the way that and this is really about small business, how small business has advertised and marketed. Before 2000, it was pretty much your location was a marketing tool. Where you sat brought you foot traffic. And then local ads. And of course, the studio jeweler has always participated in trade shows. And it might have been local art fairs and more retail shows, or it might have been more jewelry industry shows, like JCK and JA and JIS, whatever, and selling to independent retailers. So those are the primary modes. Then starting in about 2002, Google search was starting to take off then, and there were several other search engines at the time. Today, Google accounts for 86% of search is Google today. So when we talk about search, we're talking about Google. Of course, the second high volume search engine is actually YouTube, which Google owns. And then all the remaining search is made up from a handful of other search organizations that make up about 10% of search altogether. Back in 2002, it was the Wild West of search, and there were about 20 different search engines to choose from back then. And so people started fighting for keywords and buying display ads, and it was pretty low volume activity. But small businesses jumped into it first. It was an advertising medium they could compete in. They could afford it. Nobody could afford to go on major television stations, but they could buy little search ads. By 2006, social media became a really dominant form of marketing for small businesses. And I always put the word free in air quotes because even though people didn't pay for social media exposure back then, they spent huge amounts of time on it. So it wasn't really free. And of course, the time they spent doing social media was time they didn't spend elsewhere. So 2006 started our social media advertising years. Then in about 2008, PPC, or pay-per-click, and paid social, so being able to buy ads on Facebook. They started in 2006, but people didn't really start buying much in terms of Facebook advertising until 2008. So the social channel started selling advertising around then. Then in 2010 came the era of what we call retargeting and remarketing. So retargeting is when you go to a company's website and you look at a coffee pot, and the next thing you know, coffee pots are being advertised on everything you look at. And what happens is you go to that website, you look at their coffee pot, they place something called a cookie on your device, and now they know everywhere you go on the internet. That's retargeting. Remarketing is different, though people tend to use the two terms interchangeably. Remarketing is any time you capture information off of the internet, an email address is usually the thing, and then you send them email or call them or do whatever you need to do to get their attention again. So that's remarketing. So they come to your website, you collect a piece of data, and then you market to them after that. And then we hit 2021. People tend to think that 2020 and the pandemic was when things changed. It actually didn't. We were seeing tremendously accelerating digital advertising behaviors in the rest of industries up until the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, all of the small businesses and jewelry businesses that had not adopted digital marketing strategies really felt the hurt because they didn't have an alternative to in-person work. But marketing itself didn't change. People just started adopting marketing behaviors that they had needed to adopt before. So we saw a tremendous amount of new online marketing, but it wasn't really changing other than more people doing it. But in 2021, things are changing a lot. And that's because the cookie that I just talked about for retargeting. So that's a third-party cookie. A company that's not Google and that's not the company's whose website you're visiting is in charge of that cookie that lands on your web computer or your mobile phone or whatever you're using and chases you around the net with that coffee pot you looked at. Third-party cookies are going away. Apple started aggressively abolishing them last year for their Safari and other OS type devices, and Google will no longer be supporting third-party cookies starting this year. In fact, we're already seeing some of the impact of that. And small businesses had adopted this retargeting thing extensively because it was fairly inexpensive. So you could do a budget of $100 a month or $500 a month or $10,000 a month. Since it was so scalable, everybody jumped on it. And it's disappearing. And when it disappears, it's not just that you can't do retargeting anymore. It's that the cost of online advertising is about to go through the roof. Because without retargeting, everybody has to go back to buying placed ads. And when that happens, the competition for the available spaces is going to become very high. And small business is about to get priced out of the online advertising market. And I can't stress enough how important this is, that small businesses are going to be not competitive online again, kind of like what happened in 2009 and 10, when suddenly all the big brands jumped on social advertising and started squeezing small business out of there and the prices went up. We're about to have that happen. Now, there are things that you can do to get around it, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, but that's what's happening right now. And then at the bottom of that slide, I'm showing something that we call the trade show dynamic. So back in pre-2000, trade shows were reasonably affordable. A small jeweler, studio jeweler, artist could do well at trade shows. And if you were selling independent retailers, you could actually afford to go to JCK back then, get a little booth or a shared booth and get your money out of it. But over the last 20 years, trade shows have become more and more and more expensive without making it possible for a small business to get their ROI out of them. And so the hard stop that happened in trade shows in 2020 was that if people were just relying on trade events to sell, and I have studio jeweler clients who did, they would build up all their inventory all year long, and then they would go work at the Grand Central Station Christmas fair. They would do that for 4 weeks, take an apartment in New York, pay for everything for the year, and then go back to South Carolina and start making jewelry again. So a lot of people would build inventory all year, do all the art fairs all summer, and then go back to making inventory. So all of that stopped in 2020. And we don't know how it's going to look going forward again. It's going to be a while. So the trade shows, they were getting harder to make your money from, but at least they were a source of promotion, and those disappeared in 2020. So that's sort of where we've been. So what's next? Well, two things that all small business owners need to understand are both part of a category called content marketing. And content marketing is made up of two different sort of approaches. The first is inbound marketing. And inbound marketing is attracting people to your website by creating content that speaks to them, meaningful, authentic content. And when they come to your website, then you try to capture their email address so you can remarket to them. Outbound marketing, which is advertising, it throws things up on the screen and interrupts the visitor. And it's expensive because if you're not running that ad, there's a really good chance you're not getting any attention. So as long as you keep the dollars going into paid advertising, you can get some traffic. But if you turn off the spigot, the traffic dries up too. So inbound marketing uses content to attract people to your website through search. Lifecycle marketing is related to inbound marketing, but it's not exactly the same thing. So lifecycle marketing is marketing strategies that really think about who is my customer and what is their journey like. And I'm going to break that down for you in a bit. And when you understand what that customer's journey is like, and you each have customers with personas and journeys. So it may be somebody who wants to learn how to make jewelry. There are a lot of them. Which types of people who want to know how to make jewelry are going to come to your place instead of sign up for a formal jewelry program? And there are, or which people that already went and did a formal jewelry program and now they want to, learn a skill they didn't learn there? Or which kinds of people don't intend to ever make jewelry for a living, but they want to do it as a hobbyist? Those are all different personas. So lifecycle marketing pays great attention to which personas are likely to shop from your business, or at least be interested in it. And then you understand what the process is of them deciding to spend money on what you have to sell, and you market directly to those motivations. That's what lifecycle marketing is. And the elements of content marketing are all these things. It's blogs and FAQs and videos and infographics and tutorials and checklists and podcasts, all the different things that you can create. And you might think, I'm a jeweler. What do I have an ebook for? Well, we have lots of jewelers that attract customers to their website through offering really fun ebook about, if you're selling engagement rings, then the great big book of wedding lists is a big draw. If you're selling to people who want to do custom jewelry, an ebook that talks about some jewelry history and introduces them to some ideas for how to put a design together, because people are intimidated by the design process and they don't think they have anything to offer, and so they're afraid to even consider it. You can actually use things like ebooks as a jeweler to attract people to your website, to get them to give you an email address so you can market to them from there. So these are all the elements of a content marketing strategy. How often do you need to be producing content? In fact, if you want to compete in the internet today and going forward, there should be new content on your site daily. And that's exhausting if you don't know how to use things like automation and syndication to take every piece of content you make, plan it very thoughtfully, and make it work very hard for you by using it in a lot of different ways. So it needs to be a daily practice to market with content. And these are just some interesting statistics about marketing with content. So in 2020, 79% of B2B marketers were relying on content marketing to achieve their business goals. So when their other sales avenues like trade shows and traveling salespeople stopped working, they went to content marketing. And of them, 73%, the one at the bottom, plan to stick with content marketing as their primary marketing approach. Why? Because it works. So content marketing strategies meet the customers where they live, giving them the opportunity to find things that are interesting and meaningful to them. And when they find those things through search, they come to your website. When they come to your website, if you're doing the right things on your website, you can grab an email address from them and you can market to them. A lot of people don't realize this, but only 5% of the people who ever visit a website will remember to go back to that website again, even if they loved it. So we tend to think, I got them to come to my website. I have a great website. They had a great experience. Now I've got a customer. No, if you don't market to them again or pay for more advertising dollars, you have a 95% chance that they are not coming back. So you need to capture that lead, which is almost always an email address, but more and more frequently, it's an SMS. It's a mobile number. But content marketing, we've been talking about content marketing since about 2012. But companies find it difficult to create enough content and don't always know the ways to maximize the value of the content they create. So they didn't commit. But in 2020, when more and more companies tried it, they found out this really works. And now that's where people are going to be putting a lot of attention. But it's not just about creating a bunch of blog posts and social graphics. If you're just throwing content out there, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I have a Canva account. I'm just going to create new Canvas every day and throw them on social media. That's a great way to make your free social media very expensive. So this needs to be done with a lot of intention because customers crave these things. And in every bit of market research on what customers want or website visitors want, they tell you what they want: these things: authenticity, information, entertainment, relevance. And this relevance is really important. I should have stuck a highlight on it. And intelligence. And the higher end your customer is, and we're in the fine jewelry business, so there's a really good chance they're pretty high end, the more important these things are to them. They're not shopping price. And in fact, if you give them these things, you almost never need to worry about your price. That's a luxury consumer. So what are the components of content marketing? It's brand guidelines, and I'm happy to send these slides to you guys. Brand guidelines, marketing objectives, customer personas, customer journey maps, a content plan, and then understanding what resources you can provide yourself and how to get other resources. And finally, constant review of your practice so that you can refine it. So what are brand guidelines? Break down those marketing elements. You need a brand book. If your company doesn't have a brand book that expresses the basics of what colors are you always using, what colors are associated with your brand, your logo, and how your logo can and cannot be used. And you'd think that, oh, I'm not hiring a bunch of marketing people, I don't have an agency. You'd be amazed, or maybe you won't be, at how often an individual owner changes their logo just for kicks and giggles because they're bored of it, or it looks better this way in this ad and it looks better this way in that ad. So individual business owners break their brand identity constantly by not being consistent. So you need rules about how to use your logo. What's your brand personality? What are your core values? If you don't know what your core values are, your customers won't either. So you need to be able to express those through your messaging and all your imagery. What's the brand voice and tone? And what is the language of your brand? What kinds of words do you use? What kinds of words don't you use? How does that get expressed in images? If you've ever been to a website that uses a lot of stock photography and you can tell, it's not because the photos are bad or even canned. It's because there's no consistent thought process around which types of images we will use and which types of images we will not. You can go to another website that's using just as many stock images and you would swear they shot that photography themselves. It's not because they have access to a more expensive stock account. It's because they understand these brand guidelines and they apply it even to stock images. Marketing objectives. So there are different reasons that you market. And when you understand your customer and their journey, then you know which reason you're marketing to every time you put something out there. So sometimes it's what we call performance marketing. And that's, I'm selling stuff. I'm just selling stuff. Right now, I'm seeing way too many small businesses that all set up a Shopify account because Shopify is easy to set up and it's a great system. But all they're doing is performance marketing because that's Shopify's superpower, is that Shopify makes it easy to do performance marketing and connect to all the marketplaces and all the social media selling. The problem is if you are a small business, you can't live on performance marketing alone. But one objective for marketing is performance marketing. But other objectives are brand awareness. You need to create an awareness of what your brand is among your targeted market so that they start recognizing you when they see things from you. Or maybe you're advertising to attract people to get them to consider your brand, which is not the same as selling. Or maybe your ad is for capturing leads. I'm doing a specific thing to get people to cough up an email address. Or maybe you're making offers and trying to get people to convert. Or some marketing is really just to create fans and impress fans. So some of your marketing should be directed just at your existing customers, not at prospects. Or Some of your marketing is to what we call multiply. You actually want your customers to give you referrals, which is a great source of marketing audience. Or you may be marketing to your local market. Most small businesses have a tendency to approach marketing as a monolithic thing. I'm running an ad. And not understanding, and if you work in a corporate marketing department, or if you ever have, then you know all of these elements of marketing have their own purpose and their own approach. And so understanding that you need to know the objective for every piece of marketing you create will help you be more focused and more effective in what you do. So marketing and advertising is meant to reach people, and your business serves real people, and they can be categorized in groups other than jewelry buyer. So the image in the background is a bunch of fuzzy people running along a sidewalk. That's who most people are marketing to. That fuzzy person out there who might want to buy my stuff. You can't keep marketing to that person and actually have your marketing work. You need to market to this person in the foreground. She is very specific. And if you are talking to her authentically, she will know you are talking to her. And she's going to be much more attached to the message you put out. So one of the things we do in creating customer personas is that we document the people and personality profiles that you serve already. Or just worked with a jewelry business a couple of days ago. They said, we're getting the engagement ring traffic. We hate the engagement ring business. We're not making any markup on this stuff. It's a pain in the neck. You know, it takes way too much time for what we get out of it. We want the fashion jewelry buyer. And I said, okay, so what are you doing to market to the fashion jewelry buyer? All their marketing was to engagement ring buyers. Of course you're not getting the fashion jewelry buyer. We see it with retailers who have a custom group, but they never market the custom. So the only custom they ever get is the guy who comes in with a picture of his John Deere and says, I want a belt buckle that looks like this. Those guys know to go ask for jewelry for some reason, but a lot of other people who would love something custom don't know, and nobody's talking to them. So you're looking at demographic elements like age, gender, household income, location, education. People who live in Wrigleyville buy jewelry differently and are interested in jewelry differently than people on the Gold Coast. And they're different again from people in Oak Park. So you may have several different personas within those neighborhoods. And of course, there's some crossover. But these are very specific personas. People tend to choose to live around people that they feel they're similar to and that they're going to enjoy living around. Professions, family status, personal values and goals, cultural influences, media preferences, and their fears. You know, different groups of people feared buying things differently. So when we came up to Wisconsin, we had to buy a tractor because we have a lot of land. We felt a lot more fearful about buying a tractor than these people we live around who've always had tractors. That was a weird purchasing experience. Fine jewelry, some people approach it fearfully, and some people grew up with fine jewelry and they don't approach it fearfully. So what are their fears and their purchasing frictions? You know, purchasing friction in fine jewelry is almost never the price. You know what it is? It's women not being willing to give themselves permission to buy themselves something expensive. So they have to play the hint game or wait. So that's a huge purchasing friction you can market to. Purchasing friction for Pam's new business would be people who want to know how to do something, but they're afraid they can't. So understanding your persona and which personas have all of these different elements. Everybody has a couple of personas and you want to create those so you can market to them. After that, we create something called a customer journey map. Now this is an example of a map, and it's taking somebody from brand awareness through consideration, through the purchase, and all the way to advocacy, which is what I call multiply. And the different kinds of marketing you might do to every phase of that customer journey map. So when you understand your persona, let me give you I'll show you a couple of other versions of a map. This is a very common one where we just put it all up on a whiteboard with Post-it notes. So you're tailoring your map to your specific customer profile and how you plan to reach and interact with them. And you use these stages here. I'll give you this next example. You use these stages to plug in like what you might do to market to people, your personas at each different phase of their exploration. So here's where a blog for custom jewelry buyers might work really well because it'll have all these great search terms and people will find it. Here's where an ongoing interview with new couples that just bought an engagement ring. So people would come back and look for the interview. This is where this piece of content might work. Here's a piece of content that's going to speak just to customers, celebrating different customer experiences and trying to get them to feel a bit like a community. So you know your persona and you know what the different phases are of a journey map, and you start figuring, you don't have to market to every one of these little dots. You just figure out where on a customer journey map you're going to create content, and you're going to create consistent content for that. So that's what a journey map is. When you do this work, when you figure out what your marketing objectives are, you create the personas and you create your map, then you start getting really smart about plugging specific pieces of marketing in for specific purposes. And now you've gone from creating a lot of content to creating very intentional content. Now, there are a couple of questions you're asking when you create your customer journey. So one is, what is the customer doing at each point in the map? So what's the story of your customer's typical day that leads them to interact with your brand? And what are they doing in each stage? And what actions are they taking to move themselves on to the next step of the journey? Every product that people buy can be attached to a customer journey, even groceries. Smart marketers do some work to figure this out. So next thing is you're considering their context or their setting. So what else do we know about the customer? Are they entirely digital or heavily digital? Are they really, really into Logan Square life and walking around to the businesses there? Are they carrying a device with them all the time? And if they are, is it in their hand or is it in their purse? These things matter. You also want to try to imagine what your customer is thinking. So what's my customer's questions or uncertainties about my product? And how can I get those things addressed through content? So when they go searching for things and asking questions, because nobody will ask you a stupid question, but they will ask Siri. They will ask Google. They'll ask the stupidest questions ever. Make sure that you figure out all the questions that people are going to be too intimidated or embarrassed to ask, and you create content. So when they ask those questions, your site's the one that shows up. And then what are their motivations? What do they ultimately care about? Why and how do they care about your brand in their context? And what motivates them to move from considering to exploring to comparing to testing to negotiating? And then what are all the different touch points that you can have your brand make an authentic connection with them on the website, on social media, through email? So this is what making a customer journey is about. And believe it or not, you can create your first customer journey, and it can be pretty bare bones, and just doing it makes you better at it. Just experimenting and doing it. Your marketing gets better instantly just because you're thinking differently. The next step is you need a content plan. So you're asking yourself, well, first of all, it's not quite enough to understand your customer. From a content marketing perspective, you also have to understand the current state of content in the industry. And right now, there are a ton of openings and opportunities in the jewelry industry for people to do that well, because so many people are not doing it well. Everybody has a 3 C's page in their website. Who needs to look up the C's? Is it 5 C's or 3 C's? God, I haven't even drunk my whole wine yet. 4 C's is it's like, why couldn't I come up with that number? Maybe if I just named them, I could have done diamonds for a moment. So, that's because I taught a 5S class today. I feel better about myself. Okay, so everybody's talking about the characteristics of a diamond. Everybody will explain to you the difference between 9, 10, 14, 18, and 22 karat gold. A lot of people will talk to you about platinum versus gold or plating. There's so much of that stuff out there, it's not even meaningful anymore. But what people aren't doing is a lot of really meaningful brand communication about the product and the service. And there are as many stories to tell, meaningful brand stories to tell, as there are brands, if you do the work and figure out who you are as a brand. So what you're thinking is, okay, what can my content add to the conversation? And how can I tie that content back to my brand and my products and my value proposition for customers? And what content do my customers care about? That's what you're thinking about when you make your content plan. And then when you think through those 3 questions, you find content opportunities to introduce new products or to engage prospective customers or to help your customers talk themselves into buying or to delight them with your follow-up and encourage them to share your brand information. As a longtime marketer, I'm a big fan of Marshall McLuhan, and he once said, the medium is the message. And in other words, that means that whatever medium you choose, video, photograph, quiz, blog post, it becomes part of the message. So once you think through what kinds of messages you want to share, then the next thing you think about is, now what medium is the best way to share this? So then you start thinking, okay, what are my resources and capabilities for pulling this off? So you need to figure out what your budget is. And one of the reasons people are doing so much content marketing right now is because they didn't spend money on trade events, and they're not spending money on ads that attract walk-in traffic. So they're shifting budgets into content marketing, but you need a budget. I can tell you that whether you have a budget of $200 a month or $10,000 a month, there is a content strategy that you can execute. So you just need to know what your budget is. You need to figure out what talents you have for content creation and what you're going to job out. Some people write their own blog every month and produce a handful of little graphics using Canva that express ideas from that blog. So they write the blogs, they've got all these ideas, then they pull ideas from the blogs, and those ideas they pop into little Canva graphics, and then they share that stuff all month long. Some people dictate a blog because they have all of the product and brand information in their heads, and they send it through a transcriber and send it off to a copywriter who cleans it up for them. Some people job out all their blog writing. Some people are very comfortable with Canva, but they want a new video every quarter, and they job that out to someone. So you're thinking through, what kind of talent do I have? What kind of talent can I access? And what technology can I use to create this content? And I encourage people to never try to do all of it themselves, because nobody can, unless you're an advertising agency. But you can figure out which pieces you're going to do and which pieces of content you're going to hand off. And a lot of people in the jewelry business think, oh, well, I can't hire just any old college junior to do my writing because they don't know anything about jewelry. And that's where I say, dictate it. Pay $15 a month for a great transcribing system, run it through the transcriber, send it to the college junior and say, make this blog worthy. Now you don't have to train anyone. You just need somebody with good grammar and good spelling. And it will be in your voice, which is really fun, literally in your voice. I have never met a jeweler who thought tools were unimportant. And, my jewelry career started at Rio Grande, so I was immersed in jewelry maniacs for all the years I was there. And I loved that aspect of it. I think it's what got me addicted to the jewelry industry, is we love our tools. This is true for marketing as well. There are some tools you must absolutely have in your toolbox as a small business owner if you're going to be successful, because you need traffic. So you need a website, and you need a website that does a good job of selling products and content. Even if you don't deliver products through a shopping cart, even if all of your products are delivered as custom, you still need that shopping cart experience. So I work with a Mocha Megane client on the East Coast, and he has some things that go in the cart. He makes cool little Mocha Megane earrings and pendants, some things that are leftovers from his billets. But 90% of his business is custom, and that's okay. The customer can do all this build a piece of jewelry fun on the website, and then they submit a request for quote, and it's just using a purchase order function on a website. It looks just like the shopping cart, only they're sending it in and they're asking for a quote, which triggers the jeweler to call them back, and then they have a conversation, and then they have a real thing. So you need a website that can sell products, and you need a website that does a good job of delivering content. And most people have the first one these days. We're getting there because of all the Shopify sites, but not necessarily the second. Every small business owner should also have something called CRM, Customer Relationship Management, which gives them the ability to do marketing automation. This is like having an employee that works for you full time that you pay $99 a month. I cannot stress enough the importance of having good CRM. And finally, you need what we call expansion tools. Things that help you take what you're doing and make it work harder for you on an automated basis, so that you don't have to be writing every single day. You sit down and write 1 or 2 days a month and let the systems take care of pushing it out there every day. So people tend to think that their website and social media activities are their primary marketing tools, and they are important, but they're only part of the equation for a successful digital marketing strategy. So your website is the starting point. It should be your landing site and your content feeder for all your other marketing activities. Independent jewelry retailers hate it when I say this because they want their store to be the center of the universe. It's not. Today, the website is the center of the universe. 96% of people are going to go online and do research before they ever set foot in the store or pick up a phone. So your website is the center of the universe. But most of the most popular websites are insufficient to deliver the kind of marketing that you need to deliver. So a website's not enough. So here's a random question. Does anyone know why the center of a donut is so important? Feel free to unmute and answer.
So we can wear it like a ring?
I like that.
So
it's sticky.
So the center gets fried.
That's exactly right. So the center of a donut, if you didn't have the hole in the middle of the donut, it would take much longer to cook the dough through. And so you would either have uncooked dough in the middle of your donut, or the edges of the dough would be tough and the entire donut would be way too greasy. So the donut hole is an essential part of the donut. Anyway, I always envision the website as the center of the donut. It's not the donut. How many of you guys have built a website and then wondered why nobody ever came after all that work? Or how many of you are just waiting for your website to deliver traffic to you? So this is an overused phrase from me at this point. I always say, if you build it, they will come, only worked for Kevin Costner. So the website's the center of the donut. We need to wrap some tools around today's website to make the website perform. And these are tools that will help you attract website traffic and convert that traffic to leads, mostly email address, but also mobile numbers. Converse with those leads regularly to get them back to the site because of that 5% dynamic. Only 5% of them are coming out back without you chasing them. Convert those leads into buyers. Websites don't do a great job of converting people into buyers. In fact, they do a terrible job of converting people into buyers. We're relying on that customer to do everything for themselves, convert themselves. And if that worked really well, then we'd all be making a lot more money. We need to wrap some tools around the website to keep those buyers coming back for more, and then also make those buyers feel so connected to you that they recommend you to others. So remember those marketing objectives from a few slides ago? There were product sales and brand awareness and attracting and gaining consideration, all of that. Your website can do all those things, but it cannot do them alone. So this is a picture of what you get with just a website and no content tools. And the system isn't failing you. You are seeing a picture. This is a picture of a donut hole without the donut. And in fact, a beautiful website that does a lot of great things all alone, without these marketing tools that I'm talking about, it's a donut hole without the donut. So you need these elements wrapped around your website to do the marketing that's coming next in our digital marketing experience. CRM, I do entire webinars just on CRM, just on social media, just on content wrapping or content tools. But just briefly, a great CRM system functions like an employee. So you pre-plan each campaign, and then it goes and does a lot of marketing for you without you having to send it task reminders or ask it if it got it done or worrying that it got too busy to do it. And you don't have to remember to do it. Everything gets pre-scheduled, and you do it by thinking, who is this customer, my persona, what's their customer journey, and can I create an email campaign that's very personalized, one person at a time, as they give me their email address, so that this system will go out and market to them after I receive the email address. And it's an email right away thanking them, and then it's another one in 3 days, giving them some other opportunity to connect with me, then it's another one 8 days later, then it's another one 14 days later. That's marketing automation, highly personalized and very specific to that customer journey map we talked about. So that's the right CRM system. And if we have a few minutes left at the end of this, I can pull an example up on the screen and show you a campaign to give you a sense of what it can do. If you're using your social media correctly, then you're using a lot of social media automation and you're creating elements that are designed to get people to give you their email address. For fine jewelers, social media doesn't do very well selling and converting, but it's a great prospecting tool. And if you're using, say you have a Shopify site or some other kind of builder site, which most really small businesses do, you may not have the tools you need for beyond the product sale, SEO, and what we call syndication, making your content go far and wide on the internet to gather search traffic. But you can wrap a content system around your Shopify or builder site and get that fantastic SEO value. Now, all this work isn't free, but it doesn't cost a fortune either. So a CRM system, you can get an amazing, does everything you could ever want it to, CRM system for $99 a month. And it will have all the automation. It will have, in fact, a lot of times when I sit down to work with a client, the first thing we do is say, okay, Shopify, it happens all the time. I have a Shopify site that I pay X dollars a month for. And then they have 8 or 9 apps that they pay for to do all these little disconnected things. And at the end of the day, they're paying like $200 a month. A good CRM system is going to do almost all of that. So we stop doing all the crazy disintegrated apps. We put them into a CRM. The CRM does way more than the apps would, plus all the things the apps are doing. But here's a secret about getting a CRM system. Do not go to HubSpot or Keep or Green Rope or Pardot and just sign up on the site. You'll pay top dollar, you'll pay retail for that. What you need to do is if you already have a marketing agency or a partner that you work with, smart marketers are certified. Like I know here we are partner certified or certified partners with 4 different CRM companies. And that means not only that we can train you how to use it and help you set up campaigns, but when you order your CRM through a certified partner, you get discounts. You actually pay less when you get your CRM through a partner than you do when you sign up for it on the website. Some partners will not sign you up unless you're willing to pay them for a bunch of services every month. So you got to ask a lot of questions. But like I know at my agency, and a lot of agencies do this, we're not the only one, we will let anyone sign up through us because we serve small business owners. We want you to be successful, and it doesn't cost me anything to pass the discount along. So call your marketing partner, sign up, get some advice about what the right, and don't talk to anyone who only knows one CRM, because then they're just going to sell you the thing they've got to sell. And it's the whole, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. There are different CRMs for different reasons. So talk to somebody who can talk to you about different systems and why one system would work better for you than others, and then get their certified partner discount. Social media, you can do all the things you need to do in that social part of the donut, the automation and the lead generation. You can do it for free if you have some skills and can pick up some free tools. You can buy every month on AppSumo. There are lifetime deals for social media schedulers and managers. Or you can do something like Hootsuite for $49 a month. And then for your content wrapper, the thing that's going to add more content value to your Shopify site, for instance. I mean, if you have WordPress with WooCommerce, you've got the whole package. You've got product and great content SEO. Or if you have Joomla with HikaShop, you've got the whole package. But if you've got Shopify, you've only got part of the equation, or you're paying a ton of money on apps to do it. The software that you need to wrap the content around your Shopify site is free. And to syndicate your content, you can spend as little as $19 a month. Now, I realize I'm not telling you in this session what all these tools are and how to use them. I'm just giving you a sense of the fact that these things exist and they're not terribly expensive. Okay, so things are changing again, but they always have changed. And you can be part of that change. In fact, the change that we're going into right now, this content marketing change, it gives small business owners one of the best chances to compete since 2005 to 2008, when small jewelry designers, it wasn't the retailers, it was the designers and studio jewelers, were building massive social media audiences. If you got in there early, you got all this benefit of social media and you had an audience. And then everybody started competing and the ad dollars went up and it got harder to build an audience. We're in one of those moments right now, but you need to jump on it and really start thinking about content marketing. And then you're not having a car crash, then you're just, experiencing the next part of the digital marketing opportunity. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And now I'm happy to answer any questions. I can share a screen and show you some things, whatever you want.